Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we grab a huge stack of research and distill it into the crucial, often surprising nuggets of knowledge you need to be truly well-informed.
And today we are tracing one of the most powerful and really democratic ideas in modern education, this whole quest for openness.
We're diving into the history and modern reality of distance learning and, of course, the revolutionary open university model.
And what's crucial for you to understand is that the core philosophy here, accessibility, equity, flexibility, this is not a modern digital invention.
That's right. Our sources show this philosophy actually stretches back almost 2 centuries. So when we talk about distance education, or DE,
We just mean learning where the student and the instructor are physically separated.
and the Open University, or OU, is simply an institution built entirely on that idea, but with open admission and, massive scale.
It's a story of constant reinvention. I mean, every time a new communication technology comes along, from the penny post to VR, it immediately gets used to chip away at the walls of a traditional campus.
Okay, let's unpack this, and let's start at the very, very beginning, the pre-digital analog era, where the speed of your education was basically the speed of the postman.
The correspondence tradition is the absolute foundation. We found a reference suggesting the very first hint of this was way back in 1728.
1728.
Yeah, a man named Caleb Phillips advertised shorthand lessons in the Boston Gazette for people in the country.
But a lot of our sources kind of quibble with that date. They see it as more of a footnote. So what's the academic threshold here? What makes for true distance education?
It all comes down to the feedback loop. For it to be real education, it has to be two-way.
So you need to be able to submit your work and actually get feedback, get corrections.
Exactly. And we don't have proof that Phillips offered that. That is why the commonly cited starting point, which absolutely had that two-way communication, is Isaac Pitman's shorthand course in 1840.
And what was it that made Pittman's idea suddenly viable on a mass scale? What turned it from a local thing into a national movement?
It was a seemingly small but incredibly powerful piece of government policy, the uniform penny postage in the UK.
Right. Before that, mailing was expensive, unpredictable.
And once it became standardized and cheap, education by mail suddenly became economically feasible for everyone. It's a perfect example of how infrastructure can just unleash innovation.
So postal policy accidentally becomes educational policy.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. But it wasn't just private tutors, was it? Major institutions started to see the potential too.
Oh, absolutely. The University of London was pivotal here. It was established in 1836, but the real revolution came with their Royal Charter of 1858.
And what did that do?
It formally established the external student system. This meant students could earn a full degree with zero mandatory residency.
Which was a fundamental challenge to the whole idea that you had to live and breathe on a campus to get a degree.
And for the time, they were incredibly progressive. They were the first UK university to grant full degrees to women in 1878.
And you mentioned global reach. They pioneered that too. The sources note they held their first overseas exams in Mauritius in 1865.
That's it. And that geographic expansion, that need to reach people beyond the postman's route, it drove the next big technological pivot. Paper just became too slow, too restrictive.
Especially in places with lower literacy or, unreliable mail.
Exactly. The technology started to dictate the pedagogy.
And that's where radio comes in. An immediate, inexpensive alternative. We saw it in the U.S. with the University of Wisconsin Extension's WHA station back in 1919.
And its global impact was phenomenal. Just look at the numbers we found. In Congo, Brazzaville, radio courses reached over 53,000 people.
And they had organized radio club groups, which is so interesting. It adds that social element back in.
It does. And in Mexico, you had 150 radio stations broadcasting courses benefiting an estimated 2 million people.
Yeah.
That kind of instant scale was it was impossible with the penny post.
It really highlights why distance education exists in the first place.
It does. It emerged because the conventional systems, the residential ones, were just inadequate. They were expensive, exclusive, and they just couldn't handle the explosion in demand for knowledge after the World Wars.
And that leads us straight into the true institutional revolution. The founding of the UK Open University, the OUK, in the 1960s. And this wasn't just some academic idea, it was a political one.
A Cold War-era political policy driven by Prime Minister Harold Wilson. He was fundamentally interested in social mobility and national productivity.
And the sources say he was heavily influenced by trips to Russia. Right?
That's right. He saw that something like 60% of Russian engineers were earning their degrees not on campus, but through correspondence and radio.
And that sparked his vision for a university of the air. back in Britain. He saw distance as an engine for a modern workforce.
And even though the UK already had distance teaching, UOL had been at it for a century, the OUK was revolutionary because it was a direct attack on the elitist, traditional residential system.
It just completely reimagined higher education. So what were the big innovations?
Well, there are four huge ones. First, the open access policy.
Yeah.
Minimal or zero entry qualifications. They opened the door to literally everyone.
Second was the modular credit accumulation system, which is common now but was brand new in the UK then. Build a degree piece by piece.
Third, and this one is often overlooked, was the course team approach. This was a real challenge to academic freedom.
How so?
Instead of one professor lecturing on their own material, the OU made large teams, faculty, editors, media producers work together to create standardized, high-quality course materials.
A challenge to the ego, but essential for quality at scale.
Exactly. And fourth, the one that everyone remembers, was the huge BBC partnership. Those TV broadcasts started on January 3rd, 1971.
Reaching every home in the country. It was a massive democratization of education, even if those broadcasts did stop back in 2006.
And the power of that media mix, it's fascinating. Early research on OU students found this really strange split in their feedback.
What is that?
Their response to the printed course text was always very, calm, thoughtful, and analytical.
But the broadcasts, the TV element, triggered something totally different.
Completely different. Responses were often highly emotional, either extreme praise or intense emotional criticism, sometimes for the exact same program.
That's a powerful insight into media psychology. But beyond the tech, the social mission of the OU was just incredible. I found this section on their work in prisons.
Yeah, their commitment to prison education became legendary. It provided social mobility, self-management skills, a real pathway to a different life.
And had real-world consequences. The sources say that many of the key negotiators on the Irish side, both Loyalist and Republican, in the 1998 Belfast Peace Agreement,
had earned OU degrees while they were in prison. They attest how it contributed to the peace process.
That's the definition of social impact.
It is. And the OU's success proved this model worked, which led to a huge paradigm shift. We moved from innovation to full-blown industrialization.
And that need for mass scale redefined how teaching was even viewed. There's that perfect quote from the theorist Desmond Keegan.
Oh, yes. In traditional education, the teacher teaches.
In distance education, the institution teaches. You're moving from a personal tutor model to mass production.
An industrialized tradition. And the model just exploded globally. You saw the rise of these mega universities in the 70s and 80s, all basically copying the OUK blueprint.
We're talking about huge institutions. Fern Universität in Germany, UNE in Spain, Athabasca in Canada.
And the scale they reached just dwarfed traditional universities.
The numbers are staggering. India's Indira Gandhi National Open University, IGNU, is now the world's largest university. Over 4 million students.
4 million, and by 1998, there were over 1,000 of these institutions in more than 100 countries.
The demand was clearly there. But the U.S., interestingly, took a slightly different path.
They did. Early American efforts focused more on real-time delivery, like the Instructional Television Fixed Service, ITFS.
Direct circuit system, right? For schools to share specialist teachers within a small radius.
Yeah, a very early attempt at synchronous live distance learning. But it ran into problems at the university level, especially with satellite teleconferencing in the 80s.
They delivered courses to hundreds of locations, but the delivery itself was lacking.
Lacking is putting it mildly. We found that brutal quote describing it as dull gray professors reading their dull gray notes on dull gray screens.
Ouch. It shows the problem wasn't the tech. The satellite network was amazing. It was the pedagogy.
Exactly. They just pointed a camera at a traditional lecture. It was a failure of instructional design, not technology.
And that critique, that's really the first sign that mass production without engagement is a dead end. Which brings us right into the digital transformation and the challenges we face today.
The shift around the turn of the 21st century was all about digital tech, and it changed the dominant model of distance out again.
The focus moved away from that passive, industrialized model, mailing out books.
And moved toward active social interaction in virtual classrooms.
And this shift was actually driven by theory. The sources point to the theory of constructivism. For our listeners, why is that important here?
Well, constructivism argues that learners build or construct their own knowledge through experience. In the old model, you just passively received content.
Okay.
In the new virtual classroom model, facilitated by early computer networks like ByteNet, Students were expected to interact, to collaborate, to create knowledge together. The instructor became a facilitator.
That makes sense. And that virtual classroom model paved the way for things like MOOCs, massive open online courses, which took off around 2012, and open educational resources.
These just furthered the flexibility and access. The challenge there, though, is always quality assurance. How do you maintain rigor?
And now we're seeing education become intensely tailored. Things like learning analytics let educators study student behavior online and create truly personalized learning paths.
And you can't ignore the newest thing, micro-credentials. These are shorter, stackable, competency-based credentials. They're incredibly appealing for instant employability.
A lot of people are using them to sidestep a full multi-year degree for a specific job.
Exactly. But the digital era hasn't solved everything. In fact, it's created new problems. One of the biggest is the blurring of boundaries.
You mean how traditional campus universities have adopted all these flexible digital tools?
That's right. The Open University's unique status is being eroded. They're not the only game in town for remote learning anymore.
And that, combined with the issues facing non-traditional students, leads to the massive challenge of retention and dropout rates. What drives that?
It's complex, but our sources point to what they call persistence factors. Online learners need fierce self-discipline, great time management, and really strong institutional support to fight that feeling of isolation.
And when that support isn't there?
The results are pretty sobering. For instance, the dropout rate at some fully online universities, like UOC in Spain, is reported as high as 57.6% overall.
57.
Oh.
Wow. That's more than half the students just not finishing.
More than half. It shows that access is easier than ever, but keeping students engaged and supported at scale is still the core challenge.
And we still have the digital divide. Technology expands access for millions, but it also widens the gap between the information elite and the information poor.
If you don't have reliable internet, the whole model just collapses for you.
And we've even invented new problems like Zoom fatigue.
It's a real cognitive drain, and this is why critical reflection is so important. Technology has to serve the pedagogy, not the other way around. We can't just use a tool because it's new.
What an incredible journey. From the penny post delivering shorthand lessons in the 1840s, through Harold Wilson's vision of a university on TV, right up to virtual classrooms and AI personalization today. The whole story is about making education accessible to anyone.
And the Open University model, it fundamentally created a credible, high-quality alternative to the ivory tower. But as those boundaries blur, the ongoing challenges are quality, retention, and ensuring access for truly marginalized groups, especially bridging that digital divide.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is the thought I want to leave you with. If the unique competitive advantage of open universities used to be their industrialized model, their mass production and guaranteed access for non-traditional students, but now all universities are adopting digital flexibility and offering robust online courses, what singular defining quality must open universities champion in the future to truly maintain their original mission of social justice and inclusion? Something for you to chew on as you reflect on this deep dive.